This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net. And today I am very excited to be talking to Diana Elizabeth Jordan. And I have to begin by thanking a mutual friend of ours, David Zimmerman, because
Yes.
David David is exceptional in everything he does. Check out his podcast, Meet the Biz. Um, and what I love about David is he's been sharing individuals with us so that we can maybe dig a little deeper and a little different. But before we get started, I just read something on Diana's website, and it says, I choose to be an actor in my real life so I can continue to have opportunities to play many roles in my real, REEL, lives, where my disability is coincidental to the character or storyline. And, how true is that? I mean, even in everyday life, disabilities should not be our primary focus. So, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about Diana Jordan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful, Karen, and I love David so much, and I'm so grateful that he connected us. I am Diana Elizabeth Jordan. I like to give a little audio description briefly. I'm an African American woman. I have twist, and I'm wearing kind of a red floral dress. I'm in my living room that has a blurry background right now. I like to describe myself as a multi-passionate artist. I act, I'm a theater and film and theater maker, I'm a solo artist, I do solo shows. I'm also artist educator, which is how I know David. We teach together at Performing Arts Studio West. Um, and I think, I've always wanted to be an actor. I never wanted to do anything else. But along the way, I realized that as I've gotten older, that my art can really be a platform to transform the way people see disability, which is one of my main um, goals, is to really normalize what it means to have a disability. And whether I'm doing that as an actor or teaching or through my companies, I have a company called the Rainbow Butterfly Cafe, which is an edutainment production company, and I have a entertainment media production, Big on a Swing film, Dreaming Big on a Swing Entertainment. Um, but that's who I am. I'm just a kid. I'm just actually someone who likes to play pretend and being an actor. So I never really grew up. I just spent my whole life wanting to pretend to be other people.
And you know what? I think a lot of us really do that in our daily life, even when we're not in front of the camera or on the stage. Um, we all look at the world and say, oh, that's who I want to be. And what you're doing, you're pointing at yourself and saying, this is who I want to be. And, that it takes a lot of strength and maturity to be able to say that because uh, if we don't love ourselves for who we are, who's going to?
Yeah, I really agree, and full transparency is the journey I continue to be on. But I got to the point in my life where I realized I was kind of celebrating, being a woman and being a black woman, but yet the disability was something I was trying to overcome. And I grew up, you need to overcome your disability. And then as I got more into disability justice and seeing that disability, because it's a part of who I am, why do I need to overcome that? And what I need to overcome, I think a lot of the time that we need to overcome is not who we are, but the stigmas that are out there that tell us because we're of a certain age, because we're of a certain size, because of who we choose to love, um, there's something wrong with that. And so part of my mission through the Rainbow Butterfly Cafe is to eradicate ableism, racism, and othering stigmas and break down because I think we can break down the barriers, we can build bridges of understanding, acceptance, and that's what I'm only one person, I only share one story, but it's so important to hear other people's stories because I think through hearing other people's stories, you not only find commonality and empathy and a way to say, oh, this is different about us, but this is the same. And that only comes through listening and being willing to have an uncomfortable conversation too and say, oh, and what we realize about ourselves and each other. But I do agree, the journey of self love is so important. And I do a show about that. I teach about that because I do think it's the most, if we're not loving ourselves, it's, it's sad because other people love us. I mean, you know, that's the one thing I realized, you know, other people love me. Other people think I'm nice and kind. Why am I not kind to myself?
Exactly. You know, growing up in the 50s and 60s, like I did, um, we didn't get the message about loving ourselves because back then it made us look egotistical. Um, and so it was always about working so hard to get other people to like us, to love us. And sometimes we judged wrong. And when we judged wrong, it made us feel even worse. And it really wasn't until I got into my 40s and 50s that I thought, why am I trying to be somebody else? Okay. I'm not an actress. Okay. So when you're an actress, yes, you can try to be somebody else when you're on stage or behind the camera or in front of the camera. But I'm just an everyday person. And so trying to act like somebody else who I thought was better than me made it worse for me. And at the same time, I wasn't open enough to other individuals like yourself because I was closed in on me. How could I be open to you? And yet, in the last 10 to 20 years, I've changed. And I'm telling the world we all can change our attitudes. And we absolutely have to right now. As you said, you're a Black woman, and in some cases, that can be a strike against you or it can be a positive. You
Mm-hmm.
have a disability. In some cases, that can be a strike against you. Other places, not even noticed and a positive. But it's up to us to say, this is who I am. You can take me for who I am, or it can be your loss.
It is, and I think that is so important, and also acknowledging that is always a very challenging journey, but it's a necessary journey. I I do a vlog once a week called The Morning Cup of Joy, and I do try and share a little bit of positivity each week. One thing I say is I acknowledge that hearing me say something positive on a Wednesday, every Wednesday, it's not going to change your life forever. It's like if you have a cup of coffee in the morning for caffeine, it's not gonna last. If you have it on Monday, it's not gonna last till Friday. It's not gonna last till even Tuesday. So we need to eat. We need to nourish ourselves spiritually, whatever that means to you. Positive. If the constant renourishment of ourselves in the same way we nourish our bodies with food, in the same way we need to nourish our bodies with exercise and movement. My sister's a fitness coach, so you know, we need to nourish our bodies with things that are self-loving and self-care. And I agree. I think self-care has got the thing of being selfish, But I think when you are caring for yourself, when you are taking care of yourself, it allows you to do more for others because you are in your healthiest place. So when I'm in my healthiest place, I can be a better teacher. I can be a better aunt. I can be a better daughter. Because I've nourished myself, and if my goal is to be the best version of myself for other people, which it always is, my goal is to always be the best version of myself, to show up here for my nephews, for my family, for whoever, we're on set as the best version of myself. I can't do that if I'm not taking care of myself. Um,
And it's so important. And I'm glad that you brought up that in today's society, a lot of us think of that's being selfish. Um, so a couple months ago, I went into a real rigorous exercise program.
mhm,
And even though they say you should exercise in the morning, it's better for you. For my mindset, it's better in the evening because I have all these things during the day that I know I want to do and feel I have to do, that if I took time early in the day to exercise, I wouldn't be as successful.
right,
But my family now understands there is 30 to 90 minutes every evening. That's my self care. And
mhm,
it may look like I'm torturing myself, really working up a sweat. But when I'm done, I totally feel accomplished and I'm ready to go to sleep for the night and start the next day with, those good vibes. And so, how we all do these things are different. Um, but earlier in my life, I would have felt selfish. I would have said, "Oh, I'm taking 90 minutes away from my family." Well, you know what? My husband is usually in our studio working on something else, and my son is either at work or at home playing on his video games. So
mhm.
I'm not taking away from anybody. I'm nurturing.
And I think it's really important that you said, it's better for me to work out at night because I think another thing that can happen is, because I do it in the morning. I know that's my better time. Is I get up in the morning, I get my, you know, 30, 45, I'm working towards it. That's better for me in the morning. But I think it's important to listen to what the experts say, but then but it still has to work for you. So, yeah, many experts might say work out in the morning, but if that doesn't work for you, then you need to do what works for you. And I think, I would call the experts as like a wonderful buffet. And I think a lot of people have a lot of good things to say, but if I'm at a buffet, I may not want, you know what, I may try this dish and go, it's okay, but it doesn't work for me. I'm not going to take that anymore, but this works for me. And I think it's important as we evolve this to take expert advice as just advice, but whether we internalize it, we still need to listen to our hearts and do what's best for ourselves and say, that's a good idea, but you know what? That you know that doesn't work for
Right.
my life, but and something is better than nothing. I love that. So we're talking about you and I working out half hour or two, but if that doesn't work for you, anymore, then try 5 or 10 minutes. That might work for you. It might work for you to do 10 minutes every couple hours, especially now that we're home.
Sure.
More. We're still, a lot of us are still working at home. That might work for you. So I think that's part of knowing yourself and saying, this works for me. So
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to do.
So tell me a little bit about some of the roles that you have played that really have made you feel really good.
Um, you know, I'll tell a couple. The first one was, well, I think the first one, the first role I got, it was weights. It was very experimental, but I got it. It was one of my first auditions as a young actress in Chicago, and I was starting out when they were really talking about more non-traditional casting. Chicago theater was booming, but it was talked about in terms of cultural diversity, race, and I was coming in saying, you need to include disability as a part of that. So to get that role with the Glory Great was my first one. It was very experimental. My parents came in and were like, what was that show about? But it was still fun. But I think one of my most significant roles was I played Laura in The Glass Menagerie in the early '90s, and what was cool about that was for me is I had seen in American Theater magazine there was a production I believe in the Bay Area that had an all black cast. And so I called Harry J. Lennox, who's on the blacklist, who was a long time dear friend of mine. I called him and said, Harry, maybe we could do this together. And he goes, what a great idea. And he called me back like 2 weeks later and went, Chuck Smith is going to direct it. We're doing it at the Black Ensemble Theater with Jackie Taylor, who had a Black Ensemble Theater still there. They just celebrated like their 40th anniversary. So the production went off and I got to do that production, and I think it was, and then I did another one at Steppenwolf for educational theater that they had back then. Well, to me that was the first time I had an idea of something I wanted to do, and I took it to a friend and it manifested into a run. And so that was, I was in my 20s, late 20s, early 30s something. I don't know, it's been a while. But to me that's the first time I saw an idea go to, manifestation, and then graduate school too. When I wanted to move out here and get my MFA, I applied to schools in California. I made a vision board of acceptance letters of every school I applied to. And as the rejection would come up, I would tear one off, and then the call for Cal State Long Beach came. So that was it. I did a show with Cornerstone that was kind of based on my own story. Someday, where I got to play a lead and played a woman a single woman with a disability who wanted to adopt a baby. And that was very, very close to my own story. So I think every role, doing SWAT and getting to work with Shemar Moore was awesome, because that was not a role written for someone with a disability, and so to get that, every role is special because this is such a challenging industry. So I think everything to me is, I did say the majority. There's a couple things I've done where I went, oh my god, did I really do that? But most roles there's something about them that's really special and wonderful. And to me, every time I still feel like that little kid who used to dream big on a swing. The times when I'd be walking, even going to an audition when we used to go out to auditions, but when I used to walk on like the CBS lot and I had an audition, and of course it was nice to get it, but it didn't matter whether I got it or not, because I can't control that. But the fact that I was called in and I'm walking down the CBS lot to do an audition, or walking into someone's studio or casting office, that to me is still part of the dream, because part of being an actor is auditioning. So I may not book the role, but I've accomplished the dream because I'm getting called in to read, and that's part of the process of being an actor. Part of the process of being an actor is letting go and saying, I can do all I can do, then I have to give it up to God or the universe or whatever your faith practice may be, because I can't control if I get the role.
Absolutely.
I only control how well I prepare for the role.
Well, and that's a good lesson throughout life, whether it's going for a part, going for a job, just going out and meeting people. Okay. We only have so much control, and
Right.
we can show our best selves. That's all that can be expected of us. And, you know, everyone has something in the back of their head that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to stop looking at the word no as a rejection, because we've learned something from that word. It's just like when you were little and you put your hand on the stove and your mother said no. Now you know what that means.
I want to share, I had my friend Maddie Goff, she's a wonderful actress, improviser, writer, on something I do for Performing Arts Studio West. I do a Motivational Wednesday, we're virtual now, so every Wednesday I taught 3 core classes about self-care and self-empowerment, and I started having some friends come and join me, every other week. And then my friend Maddie, I asked Maddie something, and she said something, and I really would like to share this with your audience too, because it's so profound. If you define success by things you can't control, you'll never feel successful. And I thought that was so profound because it's true. Because, yes, it would be great to win an Oscar. I would love to. However, I can't control whether or not I win an Oscar. So I can't use Oscar as my definition of success. Even in my industry, even getting the part, it's really, unless I create things for myself, I can't really control that. So I try and define success for me, the actor, as the pursuit of my career. Because that's what I can control. And of course I want to work. Of course I want to get roles, and I want to get paid, and I'm doing everything for that. But my definition of success is the pursuit of my career, because that's what I have the most control over, because I work in an industry where a lot of things, and a lot of us do, are not under our control.
So you've created some of these workshops on your own.
Yes,
That is in your control because you've created them
yes.
and you're doing what you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're helping others along the way. And, that's something that is so wonderful in this industry, that so many people, and especially this past year, who come out of the woodwork and have said, hey, let me work with you. Let me help you. Let me guide you. Um, if we only did that in our everyday life, we would have, we would live in a utopia. Okay.
Yeah, I think I heard, in my Sunday, worship, I do go to church, and there was a video that said, instead of one of the videos which I thought was really powerful said, what about if we come back, when we come out of this, we don't go back to normal, we go to being better, and we create a new normal, and maybe our new normal is a bigger sense of community. Maybe our new normal is a bigger sense of having uncomfortable conversations in a place where you feel safe, because there is so much, to celebrate, to talk about issues of racism and social isolation, and not only to talk about but to listen, because I think we all need to listen to fears, even when it's uncomfortable. Because I think once you can really listen and do deep dives and be willing to do that deep dive in a safe environment, and again to learn to feel safe with to find safety around uncomfortable, because I think when you move past that, I think it's very possible to move past uncomfortability to being comfortable, but you have to be willing to go through that. Oh, this isn't. Oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Oh, and to take that in, and again, what I try and do in my workshops is to create, I call it the Rainbow Butterfly Cafe, because the cafe is where a community can gather to create a safe space to have uncomfortable conversations. When I talk about the ableism that exists, and I have a tool that I use, and people say, "Oh, I didn't realize this." Well, that's okay. Now you do. I mean, I wasn't aware of the Stonewall riots. I never heard about that. I think that was in 1969. Now that I know, I have an awareness. Now that I know, I do land acknowledgements. A lot where I acknowledge I'm on the unceded territory of the Tomba, Gabriel, Eleno tribes, because the more you know, the more you can share. And I think it's really important to say, "Oh, I didn't do that before," but I recognize the importance of doing things like audio description or land acknowledgement or my preferred pronouns, because it's just because you didn't do it before doesn't mean that it's unimportant. And once you have that awareness, are you going to make the change and go, "Yeah, I can do that.
Well,
I'm willing to," or "I'm not willing to."
and we all can do it. I mean, I grew up in a generation, and I remember my mother and my aunts always saying, "Oh, I've always done it this way, and this is how I'm going to do it." And I would say, "Well, that's okay, but things have changed."
Mm-hmm.
And their generation, they weren't going to change. Um,
Right.
and I remember my mother once saying to me, "Why are you so understanding?" I said, "Because I'm learning." Okay. And if I'm not understanding of differences, how can I then be part of that group? Okay. Um, I once told somebody about a year ago, I said, "I don't see color." And she said, "Then I don't like you." But she wasn't being mean. What she was trying to tell me is, "I want you to see color. I want you to see disability, but I want you to see it in a different light. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to see it for what it's worth."
Right.
And in this past year, I have totally changed because no, I don't know all the things that have happened to Black people over the last couple hundred years. I know enough of what I've learned. But
Mm-hmm.
schools didn't teach me enough. Okay. They left out a lot of good things.
Yes.
And the same thing with disabilities. You know, my youngest son happens to be on the autism spectrum. And I'll tell you, when he was first diagnosed, all of our friends just walked away from us. It was like, "Oh, we don't want to catch it." It's like, it's not catchy. Okay. Um, and today he is very mainstream. Um, but I lost out a lot of years of having friends because they didn't want to be aware. And I took that time to say, "I want to be aware. I want to understand. I want to be able to sit next to somebody who may look different than me, sound different than me, have totally different values than me, and learn." And that's exactly what you're providing for all of us.
Well, thank you. You know, the biggest lesson I've learned this pandemic, and I've had so many blessings, and I hate using that word because there's been so much tragedy, and so acknowledging the tragedies of the pandemic and the social injustices, the lessons I've learned about myself and doing this work is why self-care is important, because this work can be really challenging. But what I've learned with my friends is, remember, two of my dear friends and we get together every Sunday on Zoom because they haven't been able to gather in person. And, after, especially last summer, they're like, Diana, we see you, we love you. And I finally said to them, I said, you know what, I don't worry about you seeing me because you're my friend. I know you see me. I know you love me. What's scary is when I walk out of my house, when I walk into the 7-Eleven. What's scary is when I think about my young cousins or my young nephews who are amazing young black men and boys. I know that. What's scary to me is what other people who don't know them see when they walk into a store. What do they see? And so that's the fear. And so what I've realized about my circles is if you want to be in my closest circle, you have to acknowledge that my experience may be different from yours.
Absolutely.
And just you don't have to you don't have to understand it. You just have to please acknowledge that maybe as a black woman with a disability, I move differently in the world than you may as a Caucasian woman. And that doesn't mean that you will think that you're a mother. I acknowledge my experience as an aunt and not having children is different from yours as a mother. The fears I have for my nephews and cousins are different than their mothers, who I'm sure the fear is tenfold because that's their children. So I think it's about when we say I don't see this as like I often understand when people go, oh, I don't see a disability, I don't see color. I think they really say that with the best of intention. And I think the way we move past and really truly celebrate our diversity, our equity, our inclusion, and our access is to say, yes, I see you are a beautiful white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, and you are different from me, but yet, and you see me, but yet, we can find our commonalities, and that's the beauty of diversity, is seeing our differences and seeing our diversities and also connecting our commonalities as women of a certain age, as women who support disability advocacy. And that's to me the beauty of breaking down barriers and building bridges.
Well, I am very grateful to have met you. Um,
Thank you.
and I've been out to your website, which we're going to put in the show notes so people can
Okay.
follow you. Um, do you have anything possibly coming up here in the near future?
I am for people. I'm starting to promote, and if you reach out to me on my website email, I have a one-woman show called Happily Ever After. One woman's journey to finding true love, and I am starting to package that for conferences that comes with the show and the talk back. I market it through the Rainbow Butterfly Cafe, but on my website you'll find information. But that's the thing I'm working on. I've also been doing a lot of improv, so um, this Friday is my improv show that I'm a part of with wonderful women. We improv a 90s black sitcom style, which is a lot of fun. So, but a lot of things that are on my website, and you can just find me there. And all my social media is from the heart, DEJ, and that's Twitter and Instagram. And there will be a new Morning Cup of Joy on there tomorrow.
How wonderful. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Stay in touch with us because what I'd love to do is have you back on and
I would
we
love.
can keep talking about this because you know what? Now that I have to go out and run some errands for the business, I will look at people differently. I will look at them as saying, we may not have everything in common, but we have something in common.
Right.
We're human.
And I think what we all have in common is we want to make the world a better place. But I think we have different views of what that is. But I think basically people want to be loved and cared about and valued.
Absolutely.
So I see you and I see your beauty, and I just thank you so much for having me.
Well, you are beautiful as well. Love to your family. They sound amazing.
They are, I'm very blessed.
Very good.
All
Have a
right.
great day. Thanks, Diana Elizabeth Jordan. Have a good
Thank you
day.
so much for having me, Karen.
Thank you. Bye bye now.
Bye.